Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Smaulgld Subscribers Sound Off, where we speak with Smaulgld subscribers around the world to get their points of view on the gold and silver markets, the economy, and whatever else they may have on their mind. Today we have with us, and I'm delighted to introduce you to Fernando Ortega. Fernando comes to us from the wonderful country of Mexico. Fernando, how you doing?
Hi, how
Yes,
are you?
I'm just grand. Thanks for joining the show. And Fernando, how long have you been a Small Gold subscriber?
A couple of years at least,
Oh,
probably more.
I've had many interactions with you on Twitter and also on the Small Gold website. Delighted for your interactions, and I'm very pleased that you've joined the show because Mexico is an interesting place, and you are an interesting person. And
Thank
let's
you.
start off with talking about how you became interested in economics, libertarianism, and the precious metals markets.
Well, it's an interesting story in itself. When I was younger, I was uh, presented with the difficulties of the Mexican people regarding government and corruption and all these ugly things that used to crop up in Latin American places. And I started studying um, political science at some point, and turned out I would consider myself a libertarian. So, given time and enough study on the subject, I came upon the realization that I could no longer consider myself a standard Mexican because libertarianism is unheard of. So I became a pariah of sorts among my people. They don't understand libertarianism around here, but I want to think it's the future here too.
So they didn't understand libertarianism, and if you think about libertarianism, Fernando, it seems to be the most natural way to be is people sort out their own affairs. That's I would think what you initially would start to do. And you've also told me that in Mexico, I'm very much like everywhere else, they're not too much interested in the precious metals, which again to me seems astonishing because Mexico, as you were telling me in the pre-interview, is the world's largest silver mining country today, but it also has a rich history in the precious metals. And can you kind of give us a background of Mexico's history with mining
Sure.
silver and also with producing silver coins and gold coins?
Well, Mexico has a very long history in precious metals, especially silver. Um, Ever since the Aztecs started establishing, established a city in the middle of Mexico, which became Mexico City afterwards. They started extracting silver and gold, and this fact was not overlooked by the Spaniards that came and conquered the Aztecs. They started producing silver and gold in enormous quantities to send to Spain. Actually, the first Casa de Moneda, the first mint of the Americas, was precisely established by the Spanish conquistadors in the late 1500s, I believe.
Hmm.
And they produced lots of coins that became very well known worldwide, such as the pieces of the 8 real pieces. And these pieces, at some point, were even considered a reserve currency. It's a very sad thing, though, that even though Mexico has a lot of history, a very long and illustrious history with precious metals, most Mexicans are disconnected of this fact, and they no longer see silver or gold, as a matter of fact, as money. They just see it as material to make jewelry.
Well, Fernando, I want to know why, because I know why in the United States. The United States used to have the world's reserve currency. Gold used to circulate up till 1934, 1933,
Yeah.
and silver up to 1964 as a means of exchange. But in 1971, when Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard, it makes sense that the United States wanted to downplay gold as money because they wanted to push the concept of the dollar as money. But now
Hmm.
Mexico, being a silver producer, you would think they'd want to play up their role as a silver producer and try to get, like OPEC does, a higher price for their product rather than a lower price. What's going on there? Where do you see that
Well,
disconnect? Is it in the media? Is it the government?
the disconnect comes from the fact that Mexico is very much under the thumb of the United States in regards of to many things.
Hmm.
One of them is the economic policy. Mexico at some point had a silver coinage, a common circulation silver coinage,
Hmm.
up until the mid 1970s, I believe. And then sporadically, a few other coins that came into circulation made of silver. But it basically abandoned silver at roughly the same time as the United States. Um, at some point, a group of Mexicans started pushing in the direction of give Mexico a silver coinage for the modern times, but it has faced lots of resistance in at the government level. The current Libertad, the 1 ounce pieces, which can be easily sold and bought at the Banco Azteca branches in all of Mexico, is the only type of silver most Mexicans can purchase and hold in order to have exposure to silver.
And that silver, you say you buy it at a local branch of a bank?
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
Now,
the concept of coin stores in Mexico is unknown. Nobody has seen a coin store here in Mexico.
okay,
Not in a long time.
but you do have. And here's what I'm trying to get our listeners to understand. In the
Mhm.
United States, I would say most large towns do have a coin store. They may not be well visited, but they exist. There's pawn shops as
Mhm.
well. They're saying you don't have coin stores throughout Mexico, but you do have the ability to go into a bank, and there's plenty of these branches where they will actually sell you a, is it a Libertad, a 1 ounce coin?
Yes, one
Okay,
ounce Libertad coin.
and but they're widely available, aren't they? These banks that will sell you the silver.
Well, the banks themselves are plentiful. The thing is, since not many people go and buy those coins, they don't have a lot of stock. So if there's any at any point a big demand for the coins, they will run dry really, really quickly. For
Right.
instance, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you. You and I were talking in the pre-interview. We were looking at the Mexican Libertad numbers for the 1 ounce silver coin. They're generally 1 million ounces or less of the 1 ounce, and the smaller coins, they basically just send those overseas for export, and there's very few of
Yes,
those. So if you're in Mexico and you want to buy a silver coin, you're saying you're basically limited to the 1 ounce Libertad, but if only 1 million of those or less are being made, and most of those are being shipped, because you can buy those on JM Bullion, buygoldandsilver.com, Silver Doctors, AppMex, all this, they all have Mexican Libertad. There must not be that many left in Mexico for you to buy, but
exactly.
you seem like one of the only people that go into the bank and actually buy them. Can you tell us your experience? I think you told me about a year ago you had trouble finding them though.
Yes, at some point last year, around September, if I remember correctly, there were no Libertads to be bought at any price in any bank in the city I live for about 6 weeks, probably.
Hmm.
Uh, then they started coming in really slowly, and they were older vintages, mid 90s, mid 2000s, and the whole 2016 year was completely unexistent. I mean, I could never get one of those coins, 2016. All the coins I bought were 2015 and earlier, or now I'm getting some 2017.
That's interesting because the if you look at the mintage numbers, they're all pretty low. But I get, and they also don't start making the current year until like April. I don't even think the 2017s became available until just I don't know, a few weeks ago. And then
Yeah,
they
I got one of them.
and then they only make them. They only make a million of them or less. So have you ever? Do you have any friends, any colleagues, anybody you know in Mexico that has any interest in the precious metals?
Well, besides passing interest, none. The thing is, most people don't have enough money to go around normally. So it's saving in the form of silver is normal. It's rare, really rare. So most people, when they think I'm gonna save some money, they don't think silver, they don't think gold, they think pesos. The most think dollars, but not pesos, but
They think.
not silver.
So how does one save if one has some means in Mexico, um, and they want to save in dollars? How do they obtain dollars?
They go to an exchange house,
Hmm.
and or some of the tourist trade carry lots of dollars, but not it's not really hard to get them. In the zone I live, I even get from time to time Belizean dollars, but those are not really
Hmm.
widely used.
And where do they keep them? You don't keep them in a dollar denominated Mexican bank, do you? Or do you keep the
Those don't
dollar?
exist anymore here. You cannot have dollars in a Mexican bank.
Ah,
It's a Mexican, I mean.
so you basically take the
Or
dollars in the exchange and you stick them in a mattress or do what with them?
most people either exchange them or keep them as dollars.
And can you transact in your area in dollars business?
Well, if you know the person, he may be willing to take your dollars for a nominal fee, of course, but most people would rather have you go change them and pay them in pesos.
Okay, okay. And but if you try to pay somebody in silver, they'd look at you like you had tres cabezas, no?
Yes, I have tried that at some point, and it was a very, very interesting reaction. Most
Ah.
people told me, "What am I going to do with that?"
Well, yeah, you should do the Mexican Mark Dice. You should stand on a street corner and, with a 10-ounce
Yeah,
silver bar and try to
yeah.
get rid of it. Um,
I remember that video. I was telling my wife, I wish I was there to make it good at
Sure.
all.
Well, there were two opportunities. One, when the price of gold was about 1,600, he was trying to sell a gold ounce, I don't know, for $50 face value,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
no one took it. And then there was another one. He was handing out 10-ounce silver bars or a chocolate bar. Everybody took the chocolate bar.
yeah. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it.
Well, and it's the same all over. Now, that leads
Mhm.
us to gold and silver. Now, the average Mexican, what you're saying is it really doesn't matter. You could tell them gold is more valuable than silver, silver is more valuable than gold. They wouldn't even know the difference. But in America, we have this kind of, I wouldn't say it's a debate, but there's a very large silver crowd in America that's very excited about silver, sees it as an
Mhm.
undervalued asset. And, in other parts of the world, they view gold, like in India and China, that's the real thing. That's the precious metal. That's the one with the history, not necessarily silver. What's your view on silver and gold? And if you have enough sample of your countrymen, would you say if they were to see gold versus silver, would they prefer one or the other? And what's your view on the relative values of the two?
Well, most people think of gold as very valuable. There is no hiding that fact. I mean, people want jewelry made of gold.
Hmm.
But since there has been a lot of very really cheap silver jewelry available for a long time, most people think of silver as a throwaway metal.
Hmm.
So
Well,
they don't see.
it is kind of thrown away, as we know in electronics, but I
Yes.
don't think people throw their jewelry away, or do they?
No, of course. No, but for instance, you can go and buy your wife a small ring made of silver, and it's going to cost you maybe 10, $15 tops, or the Mexican equivalent, right? And it's not really that hard to think when it goes ugly, when it turns tarnished. We can simply throw it away and buy the wife a new one. So that's what most people do. They don't think silver is that much that valuable because it tarnishes. It's made of. I mean, cheap things are made of silver.
Okay, a lot of people think that they'll probably say that I prompted you to give that answer, but because a lot of people think that listen to Smaulgld that I don't like silver. I do like silver, but when people hear my audience hear people kind of speak the truth about silver, what the general attitude towards it is, they really get very upset. They say, "Oh, it has all
Yeah,
these uses. It's almost as valuable as gold." And I kind of cringe when I hear that because I know that's a function of them listening to kind of silver pumpers who basically have deified silver to the point where they think it's the metal on earth. And all metals are useful, and silver's useful. I like silver, but like you say, if you ask your wife, I have a gold ring for you and I have a silver ring for you.
yeah.
She's
She'll prefer the gold.
there's not even a doubt about it. So when you look at it from point of view of just some people like the beauty of silver, some people like the beauty of gold, but more people they see gold as a more valuable, and that's why central banks hold it. I'm not knocking silver, but there is a ratio, and that
Yeah,
ratio I think reflects the desirability of gold over silver. And so you're basically saying the same thing. And we're talking about the common person. I'm not talking about the investor, but the average person, the man in the
the
street.
average person. Yeah,
They're going to look at silver and they're going to say, "Well, that's nice looking." You show them gold, they start to get excited. They see a diamond on gold, they get more excited. They see a diamond on silver, they say, "Can't you get a gold setting for that?" So,
yeah,
okay. Well, the next question I had for you is economics. Now,
yeah.
one of the things I noticed is, and we're not really hearing much. One thing that's interesting is the U.S. gets a lot of information from foreign sources, but most of it is AP, Reuters, and English-speaking newspapers. When Donald Trump started to run for president, and as it became apparent he might win, and when he did win, one of the things I noticed is, and I want to see if there's a correlation, not just some coincidence. The Mexican government has sold off more than half of its U.S. treasuries. What is I guess, the state-run media, even if it's not necessarily officially state-run, what is the media's point of view towards the United States and the potential for tariffs for Mexican goods coming into the United States and a wall? Is there a general perception, like there is in the United States, at least with the mainstream media, that they are against Donald Trump? Is that felt in the media and in the people of Mexico?
Well, ever since Donald Trump became the president of the United States and his rhetoric about the border wall became known, the rejection towards his image became really, really big, even fashionable to hate Donald Trump in Mexico.
Hmm.
I have seen many people react negatively to anything he has to say, whatever he has the right reasons to say them or not. Um, I feel that at this point, most people, if it was in their power to simply uh, stop dealing with the United States commercially, they would have. Of course, how can I say this in a way that is not insulting?
Say it
Um,
in Spanish. No one will understand it.
I don't worry. Um, let's put it this way: Donald Trump insulted a big part of Mexico by saying Mexico should pay for the wall.
Hmm.
While I understand the reasons why he said it, I don't see any practical way to make it happen. And most people see it, I mean, in Mexico, see it as a personal insult that he wants to make the wall to split families that are spread across both countries and all this stuff, and make the country that is going to be mostly affected by it pay for the instrument of this separation. Um, so I would say that there's a lot of animosity right now against whatever proposal, economic or otherwise, that comes from the government.
Okay, now Fernando, here, okay, this is what's perplexing to me, and it's even more perplexing. If you have a population who is saying, as you say, they would like to cut off ties and trade with the United States,
Hmm.
wouldn't one of the most obvious ways be, okay, we are going to now monetize silver. We got it. We got a lot of it. We're going to use silver. And if you want to tax it to come in, fine. But we are now going to move away from the dollar and we're going to conduct our business in silver. That doesn't seem to enter anyone's mind, does it?
No, it doesn't. But the thing is, it's also a thing of being practical, because not many people will take silver as payment, given the fact that most people don't recognize it as money anymore.
Okay, but the thing about legal tender laws is that when you when you institute them, then that's what becomes money. So the reason Mexicans think pesos are valuable and Americans think dollars are valuable is because they're told that. So it wouldn't take much to tell them, ahora mismo, okay, silver is now your money. It doesn't seem to be within, it's just like in the United States, there doesn't seem to be any, other than on the fringes,
I
real movement
believe
to actually look at sound money.
I believe it's because of the same reasons the silver is no longer monetized in the United States. The Mexican government needs the ability to spend in a
Mm,
deficitary way. So if they constrain themselves to silver or any other metal, they are giving themselves very tight limits regarding how much they can spend versus how much they can earn in the year-to-year basis.
Fernando, that's exactly right. And you know, to a lot of people who are cheerleading on China because they look like they're accumulating gold, I say the same thing. China doesn't want to be restrained by gold. They're saying, "Oh, they're going to back the yuan by gold." And it's like, no, they're not. China is based on credit. In order for them to appease, I mean, how many? I mean, over a billion people that they have to support. They don't want to be restrained by sound money. So you're right. I think it has to do with, it's not even cultural. It has to do with governments worldwide.
Yeah,
Any government has to be concerned about its ability to just print money out of thin air because that's what they need to do. If they want to make promises,
all governments want to run this system into the tracking
right. So
because it's the most convenient thing to do.
a populist movement for silver isn't going to fly because a real populist politician will always be able to say, no, I can give you more without silver. I can give you
Exactly.
more by just printing the money. So that leads you back to your libertarianism. And from you mentioned on the pre-interview that you found libertarianism first. Then how did you move into precious metals? And you also seem to be following U.S. politics. So explain how you
Yeah.
went from your political philosophy into an economic philosophy and then towards how you view the world.
Well, when I started studying political philosophy, I encountered that money as an act of state was a fallacy. And when I started studying what were the forms of money that were used before, and I understood real money versus fiduciary money, um, became apparent to me that the only real money was gold and silver because of what it is, basically. And that led me to start looking into the metals here in Mexico, and I started saving in silver at first. Then I became an investor. Uh, I believe strongly in sound form of money. Sadly, not much of it, and I mean, not much has come out of it besides me getting a strong position in metals.
Hmm.
I'm hoping at some point in time the situation reverses itself and the people around me begin to uh, appreciate the metals and for what they can do. Um, I'm not really sure how much time that's gonna take. I am not even sure that if I'm gonna be able to see it,
Well,
but
I
it's
have two
also there.
questions. I have two questions for you then. The first one is, we'll get this one out of the way because it's a simple uh, answer. Is
Hmm.
the way you buy silver, you go into the bank, you get your silver. Can you buy gold the same way?
So the only way you can buy monetized gold is if you open an account with the Mexican Mint and buy it through the internet, or if you go in person to the Mint's office in Mexico City. And it's not really easy to. I mean, you can get gold from. I mean, some people, for instance, at some point inherit coins from their parents from the times in which gold and silver were used as money. But those opportunities are very few and far between, so it's
Right.
not to get gold.
So basically, if someone was interested in precious metals, it's easier for them to go into a bank and get silver Libertads if they happen to be available. The second question is,
Yeah,
and we'll kind of wrap up with this, is you mentioned, at some point maybe they'll start to see this, but you've had interactions, I would imagine, with friends and colleagues. Can you describe your attempts at explaining, forget libertarian philosophy, just the
just
value
metal.
of gold and silver with your friends?
Well, at some point, I tried to convince people. You know how that goes. It's
Hmm.
usually not the easiest thing to do when people are so out of touch with real life. Most of the time, all I can get from them is the idea that yes, metals are very valuable. That silver coins are nice. They're pretty things that are good to have around if you want to give someone a strange gift, for instance.
Right.
But saving them is not practical for everyday uses. I mean, they think that savings need to be liquid, and the only liquid things are bills in pesos or dollars. They don't see the value in saving in metals.
Okay, but how old are these people? Because you've been through currency crises in Mexico in the last 25 years. And
Yeah, I became interested in buying metals fairly recently, less than 10 years. So I've been around the metal scene ever since the I mean around the aftermath of the
mhm.
2008 crisis,
Well,
and I was there to see the ramp up to $50 of the
well,
30 something.
Fernando, in the United States, I mean, it's not widespread, but I do have to draw a distinction that there are significant numbers of Americans that did get kind of through the internet, through YouTube, through a variety of, I guess, people understanding what happened in the United States. The American Silver Eagle sold 47 million in 2015, 47 million 1 ounce silver coins. And the Libertad mintage did not accelerate at the same pace. And it seems like there wasn't that awakening in Mexico. Not that there was a mass awakening in the United States, but there was some awakening of people to the precious metals. It sounds like in Mexico, other than you and a few others, it's even more subdued. Is that a correct
At
analysis?
some point,
Because you seem to be interacting on Twitter with a lot of Americans too.
mostly Americans. The thing is,
Right.
I have very few Mexican friends that are in the same page as I am,
Hmm.
or as awake to many things as I am. So I mostly interact with Americans and Europeans,
Right.
and the the level of awakening of perception regarding metals in the United States, it's a lot higher than in Mexico. So I tend to have my views more tuned to the American reality than to many other.
Well, what's interesting, Fernando, if you ask Americans, they'll tell you no one in America is interested, but it sounds like you guys are even further behind in even
Yes,
accepting the precious metals as gold and silver as sound money, and we
for
just don't.
instance, in,
It,
in the place
it's
I go and buy the coins, at some point I asked the bank manager how many coins people bought during the month. What he told me is that my purchases make up around 50% of them. So
so you are the market in
pretty much.
in Mexico in your area for silver coin
And
sales.
another thing, I've been buying coins in the same place for the last 4 to 5 years,
Right.
and um, there has been only one time in that whole period in which another person was next to me buying silver.
Hmm.
Just one time, which was honestly a surprise because it never happened before. He was buying one coin, just one.
And did you manage to strike up a conversation with him and ask him why he
Well, I
was?
tried, but the thing is, he appeared to be making. He was trying to speculate with the coin rather than saving it. So
Yeah. So it wasn't out of any
it was no much fun for me.
sound money. He wanted to hold it for a long time, preserve his wealth. He was looking to speculate in a little silver.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Fernando, I want to really thank you for joining us this evening, and I hope we'll get to talk soon. Thank you very much, Fernando.
Thank you, Luis. Have a nice time.